You're not alone, even if it feels that way.
Physically, emotionally, shine your light so bright for all to see. They're gonna see I'm even stronger than I knew, baby. This power that I got inside.
You have one new text message from Leila Supton.
Open?
Hey, David. Hope work doesn't suck too much. Wink face, tongue out emoji. So since you suck at making plans, I'm gonna make them for us. I have to go to a party this weekend, and I know it's kind of short notice, but they said I could bring a date, and there'll be plenty of booze. You wanna go?
Text Layla.
Okay.
Hey, Layla. Smiley face. Sunglasses face. I'd love to go. I might even bring a gift. What's going on?
Holy shit.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Fernando A. Mico. I am the Executive Director, founder of the Nova Film Festival, and we are in our virtual stage for Q&A on Thursday evening, sharing some special time with actors and directors and awesome film people and soon-to-be big celebrities. And they're going to share all their wealth of knowledge, creativity, and fun representing their movies. And hopefully we're going to have some good stuff come out here. So if you could do it individually, please introduce yourselves. Check your microphones, Ben, and tell us about your project. Maybe something wild on top of that. But once everybody gets established, we're gonna get going. For people in the audience who pop in or out, just so you know, you are all muted. You can still play with the popcorn on the sides. If you'd like to say something when we open up the Q&A portion of the panel, just click and drag your picture, your icon, your video onto one of the 3 squares underneath me. It's like me passing or you grabbing a microphone, and then your voice can be heard, and we'll go from there. So that's the quick housekeeping. And yeah, have fun. Have fun. There's all kinds of cool stuff we can do here. No coming on stage if you're not invited. Okay, okay. I didn't say that. So okay. Anyway, Ben, please start us off. Please introduce your presence to us all.
Well, thank you so much, Fernando, and to you and everybody behind the scenes at Nova Fest. This is a great thing. My name is Ben Myers, and I'm the director of A Lone Star Love. I'm also a producer on the project, and I happen to have a tiny little part in the film as well.
Fantastic. And totally broke my rule where I said we go alphabetically because Annette, you start. It starts with an A. So
all good.
We're wild and crazy here. Please, Annette, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Annette. I'm also part of A Lone Star Love. I play Viva, the AI, and yeah, lovely to be here. Thank you for having us.
Okay, and it's pronounced Annette, so it's not the French. Oh, I bet you've had that conversation, right?
Oh yes.
Okay. I'll take the reins a little bit. Lauren, L is next. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lauren Harris. I play Wendy in Sassy's How to Hack Birth Control.
All right.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Yum-Shuster, and I'm the director of the feature film Death on Evergreen. Yeah.
Great.
Hi, my name is Sassy Mohen. I'm the writer, director, producer, and editor of How to Hack Birth Control.
Yay, Mr. Vince.
And yes, I'm Vince Yearly. I am an actor and producer on How to Hack Birth Control as well. I play the role of Noah.
Okay. Yeah, please forgive me. I've seen all your films, obviously, but it could be 2 weeks, 2 hours, or 2 months removed from whenever you submitted it. And you're not the only films, although you're all spectacular superstars. And I'm not just kissing, but there you guys have really incredible productions. So, any volunteers who wants to talk about their film from just introduce what it's about and what inspired it? Because I will just start. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I'll happily jump in. So,
Please.
A Lone Star Love is kind of a sci-fi morality tale. Think of it like an episode of Black Mirror. It's a very unique mixture of elements for a film. It's about David, an Irish national who moved to Texas in Austin, and he's hitting the dating scene, and he meets up with Layla, who is completely off of social media, totally against the idea. They meet up in a bar where you're not allowed to have your phones. Well, as they start dating, there's a side story. We understand that he actually owns, in the year 2023, just right around the bend, a social media android called Aviva, who is played by Annette, an amazing performance. And it's sort of a love triangle where he's engaging on this 1, 2, 3 dates with Layla, who is very much, an analog loving, connecting person that's kind of a free spirit, really rooted in Austin. And Viva, who represents this sort of cold attraction towards social media that's kind of pulling us. And the film is really about the choice between where you're putting your attention. Are you putting your attention in the real world or interacting with other humans, even as we are doing this virtually? Or are you kind of sucked into social media and engaged that way? It kind of feels like a romantic comedy at first, and then slowly reveals itself to be a more sinister sci-fi story, where there's a big lesson to be learned by our lead character, David. So it's about 24 minutes long. So it feels like this beefy little featurette, almost like an episode of television. And I had the pleasure of coming on to the project as director when producer Dee Walkie invited me on with the writer of the project, Ronan Colfer. They play the two leads in the film. Along with Annette, they create this love triangle. And of course, it being set in Austin, Texas, we really wanted to lean into that Austin ethos. So it's a soundtrack-driven film, features some live band performances. It really kind of feels like a throwback 90s rom-com in that way that sort of starts to sour. So our whole sensibility about the film was trying to create a lot of surprises. And of course, I'm really excited that Annette is here because she plays Viva. And the thing about Viva is it's kind of like owning the fanciest iPhone you can. And it's not about being an AI. This is not exactly her, and this is not Ex Machina. This is just a machine that is delivering to you your social media experience in the most compelling way possible, and the kind of can't look away in a sense that like you are totally trapped. And the way that you share social media experiences or you view social media experiences is by making eye contact with Viva, played by Annette. And so it's just kind of reinforcing that intimacy. But I was really proud to be a part of the project. I have a small little part in the film. I play the lead character, Layla's brother. And when things kind of go off the rails, and David makes an impromptu comment at a party that kind of gets things spinning away. But it was really a pleasure. We shot in Austin, Texas over 5 days, right before the pandemic in January of 2020. So I'm sure, like many filmmakers here, it was quite a blessing to have that work be able to take into post as kind of a life raft during that period when you're totally separated. And it also gave us a lot of time, the creative team, to reflect on the meaning of the film, because now we find ourselves so isolated, and it's only really with social media or other kind of virtual platforms that we can connect with each other. So a real pleasure to be involved with the project. And I just think that it's something that I think people will really relate to. I think people will find it very entertaining. So if you have some time left on the festival, definitely check out A Lone Star Love.
Fantastic. I mean, I was going to queue up that little queue up for the rest of you later. I was going to ask, what was it like shooting during COVID? So you really you dodged a bullet. Again, if you're in post, perfect timing to just everything is you didn't have, hopefully you didn't get tagged at all with any of that. But so literally you had your martini shot before COVID really dropped, and you were affected by health people on set and insurance and SAG and all that.
Right, not an issue for us, but of course,
lucky.
like everybody else, it made challenges in post. I mean, fortunately, the film was edited by Rachel Pearl, who happens to be my wife, so we kind of were able to share a space in that way. But when it came to working with our colorist, who was also the DP of the project, Nicholas Richter, and Eric Roediger, who did a good bit of the special effects work, these kind of projection screens that come out of her eyes. That stuff takes more time, so there's a challenge there. But in a way, and I think a lot of the filmmakers here who have had that experience in COVID can relate to, you get a little bit more time to consider your film, to kind of to get some feedback. Maybe I think it was extremely helpful for us to get a round of feedback before we hit picture lock from some people, just to kind of see what was hitting and what was missing. And of course, also this original soundtrack for the film, and there was a handful of songs that were written for the film, and a handful of songs that we had licensed from local artists in Boston and Austin and all around the country. So really taking the time to perfect those things and find the right music and let our musical artists create original work that they felt proud of, that we really also felt make sense of the story. So ultimately, the pandemic is a serious thing, but it was a blessing to have a Lone Star Love during that process, for sure.
Lauren, what's your take? Yeah, congratulations. Everybody's gonna get.
I'm sorry, what was the question on my take?
I was going to Annette, because she was.
Okay, I'm
sorry.
sorry. I'm a little confused there.
If you want to talk, well, because you were the and viewing it the first time, we've seen similar takes on it, but this was unique as far as your role in it. Share your experience, and after looking at the scripts, were you approached? Did you know people? Was it written around you, or did you see this cold? You auditioned for it in front of strangers. How were you introduced into this project?
Well, I knew the producer, Dee Wapke, and she brought me on to the initial table read, where I also met Ronan, the writer. And back then, we were looking at a few different scripts, just kind of testing them out, different stories, and this one kind of stuck with us. Of course, the script was completely different from how it turned out to be. But it was really cool to be a part of the process from the very, very beginning of like really cultivating the story and the characters and the different accents and just seeing it all really come together and seeing how a team really came together as well. For me, with my character, it was quite the journey of not only physicality wise, but also conversations about how conscious is Viva. And we decided that unlike other stories like Ex Machina and other Black Mirror episodes, that this is different in a way that Viva does not. And also what was refreshing to me was also seeing this take of a robot that isn't too like sexualized. And that I really, really appreciated. And I think that also brings a unique quality to this film. But all in all, it was, great opportunity. It was my first time in Austin, so it was great to see a new city as well and meet the team right before, lockdown. So it just made me extra, extra grateful to be able to be a part of this.
Oh, I should have, instead of the headset, I should have worn I have a cowboy hat that I got from Austin from a film festival there. If you have a chance, and if you haven't already, there is another short film drama called 1139, or 1139 is part of it. But it's just a weird synchronicity with where there are two films or more that are run somewhat parallel. And I think it's another take kind of, I don't want to necessarily say you've got a genre here, but you keep mentioning Ex Machina, but kind of in the same vein, to put it that way. So
Fernando,
I
just want to, before we leave this topic, I just want to jump in here and piggyback on something that Annette said.
Please.
When I was first presented the script, the love triangle aspect wasn't there in terms of Layla's character, but there was this very detailed idea about this Viva character. And the whole idea of starting to enter in and getting into that trope of a female robot that is sort of in service of a male character, this is, very, very problematic to handle. This is a trope that is, even when I think a lot of films, short films, deal with that, they end up sort of excusing the things by having bad things happen to somebody or whatever, but they're still having scenes that depict maybe sexualization or violence. And so for me, it was important that if we were not initially going to go with, say, a non-binary performer for the role, that if we were going to do this feminized robot, that we subvert those tropes, that we flip it on its head. And, there's a scene in the bedroom where Annette is fully clothed and Ronan has his shirt off. Okay. There is no acts of, we're respectful of this vision of this feminized robot, right? Because this is not about making excuses for violence, and this is not about sending people off in these, like, it's meant to be a critique of some of the toxic masculinity, right? And so if we're trying to critique toxic masculinity, we don't want to be portraying these certain scenarios in that way. So that was something that was, as I came on as a co-writer and as I worked as director, that was something that I tried to be very conscious of, that was important to me, and I hope that people see that reflected in the film.
Yeah, I mean, it would be hard not to dance around that aspect within the story that you created. Okay, we're gonna open up whole bit. I just want to make sure everybody gets their moment, and we really want to open it up for specific questions or very general questions. How about Lauren? Because you were you look like you might be nipping at the bit a little bit. Is there anything you'd like to share with anything really? But again, share the project from your
I
perspective.
think I should really let Sassy be the one to describe it, but then I'm happy.
Okay, or both of you, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm the writer, director, producer, and editor of How to Hack Birth Control. Vince here below me on the screen, at least, is also a co-producer and the assistant editor and an actor in How to Hack Birth Control. And Lauren is one of the lead actors in it. And How to Hack Birth Control, it's a TV pilot from the How to Hack series. So it's basically like a late night comedy satire with sort of the tone of Samantha Bee with the sketches of SNL that literally tell you how to hack birth control, how to get it for free, how to get it for cheap, where you can get it, how you can get it. And it covers the entire spectrum from basically condoms to like emotional support in the end. Because in today's world, especially, women really, I would say from my perspective, women really need the support in what's going on politically today. And so it's just getting the message out there. And so, yeah, it's basically an educational comedy. And here, Vince, do you want to say anything?
And put to music.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, don't forget that aspect.
Well, as we kind of were working on this together, I basically started off in the beginning of 2020 with writing it. We, as soon as like the lockdown happened, we really started writing it and just really getting it going. And Sassy and I spent a lot of nights just kind of workshopping it together. And then we basically had to put together we had a cast of at least 60 people. And
let's say cast and crew, 60
cast and crew, sorry.
Yeah,
the CNC. But basically, our cast and crew was about 60, and we had to shoot in 1 week in November of 2020. So at the height of the epidemic in this epicenter of LA, and we managed to. Not a single person got COVID. We had very strict. We were really good at working the angle of keeping everyone healthy, keeping everything safe to shoot. And it was one of those things where it really shines about being an independent film producer and having to really work with the structure you're given and have to pull a lot of audibles. And it really came together very well. And it was also just a lot of fun, especially going through the casting process to see who we were going to bring in. And for example, we were very happy to see Lauren show up. And Lauren, if you want to take it away there.
Well, I just want to add that it wasn't that we all stayed healthy while just being on set. We also had a rehearsal period that we still all managed to stay healthy for, which was really useful in making everybody feel comfortable and also ready to just get to set and do what we needed to do. For example, in my role, I wear a chastity belt, which is one of those situations. I'm not sure if any of you have ever worn a chastity belt, but but it's a little bit uncomfortable, or could be uncomfortable, to have somebody be putting that on you in costuming, while you're also worried about somebody being that close to you and not getting you sick, so that you're able to continue with the rest of your days on set. But everything went so smoothly. I have to say, like, probably have never felt more comfortable on a set, even though it was the height of the pandemic. It was just such a great environment and so supportive. And there were really strong women in the crew, which is something that was really important to me, especially given the messaging of the project, which I think just made everything go so smoothly and make us all feel so comfortable.
Yeah, and something to add too, because I know, Ben, you're talking about how you're so thankful that you had the film to carry you through the pandemic. I kind of felt the same way, because I came up with the idea before the pandemic, and even though we shot it during, it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm glad that I thought of this beforehand so I could actually conceptualize it during, because I honestly, I was about to not shoot it that summer, but one of my best friends actually helped head the COVID response in DC, the district, not the government. But she told me, she like literally sat me down during a brief visit we had to the East Coast, and she was like, you can do this. You just have to do it smartly. You just have to follow these rules, and it can be done successfully. So it's just, I mean, it was really a great experience all around, besides, of course, the pandemic. And then there's the election that happened a week before that we shot this. So there was a little like unease, like being like, what's going to happen after the election? But luckily, not a lot did. So we were able to shoot successfully and have these rehearsals outside, which were, I felt, even more beneficial, because it was like a big space, and, everyone kind of was able to get to know each other, but comfortably. I mean, not during a pandemic might have been much more fun, but this was also like just adapting and understanding the situation and still being able to make a film during it, which is what I also feel filmmaking is, right? Like, especially indie filmmaking, you have a million problems thrown at you every single day, and it's always just like, okay, you have to take them and then make a split-second decision of how to make sure you can execute this correctly. And in a way, like, the pandemic really challenged me as a director to be like, okay, how can I take my idea and actually do it in a way that everyone is safe and accomplishes what needs to be accomplished? I feel like the other directors here are like, yes.
Sassy, can I ask you something about that? I'm really curious, because the pandemic, like, it shapes us all. It affected all of us. So as an artist, as a creator, you were developing the project beforehand, and you were shooting during it. Did you find that because you had changed, and in whatever way you'd been affected by the pandemic, that it affected your point of view about the work, and then the work changed at all?
I did, actually, because first of all, I changed a lot of scenes to be outside that weren't outside before the pandemic. And it really, it changed the entire way the script was developed, because I made a lot more scenes, or I should say as many as possible, one-on-one. And like at the end, there's a big dance finale number. But again, that was outside. Like literally everything that we could do with as much distance as possible, we could do. However, it's a film about birth control, which means a lot of people will be kissing and touching. So you can't really get around that. You know what I mean? But like, I'm sure, I don't know, Sabrina, I don't know when you shot your film, but I can imagine that maybe you had a similar experience with making a movie during the pandemic.
I was actually really lucky, because I actually shot it in 2019, at the beginning of 2019, and I just took forever to edit it. So I'm just like amazed by how you guys were doing it, like how you guys did this. So no, I cannot relate, but like I just like to hear, I like hearing about it so I can know what to do like in the future.
Yeah, Ben, you kind of stole my thunder there. That was like one of the questions that I was thinking about is how much of the outside locations were affected by the pandemic. Sassy, like, did you was it on the page it was supposed to be here, but you know what, because of everything, we're gonna have to put it out there.
Well, like Vince is really awesome, because I mean, in general, we're also getting married, so I also think that he's awesome. Wow. That too. But that was also decided before the pandemic. But anyway, he's also a comedy improv actor, and one thing that was really cool when I was coming up with the initial ideas, I was like, let me play out these scenes with you. Let me like workshop these with you and get your perspective on it. And so we kind of like thought about the scenes in theory. And then when it came to the pandemic, it was like, okay, how can we put like the infomercial outside? So we have an outside wedding, which Lauren is in, right? Like instead of an inside in the chapel wedding, as I'd initially envisioned it. So it was a lot of things that were like, it's like a quick on your feet thing, right? Like you think about, okay, this could be here, but how about if I did it where it's like half outside? So it's really, the other thing I wanted to make sure is because actors go through so much. You guys are amazing and put yourself on display like 24/7, which I know is very difficult. And so it's like, I didn't want to abuse the actor's trust or time. So I really wanted to make sure that we could all have an experience in the end that we were comfortable with. And that was one of the things that I strive the most to do, especially with such a large cast. And so I think in the end, like, I mean, I was talking to Vince about this earlier, like we never know an alternate timeline because that didn't happen, right? But the pandemic taught me so much about especially how to appreciate the time that people give you in a time of such stress, you know, because everyone here went through it. And to be able to be like, I'm going to risk my life to be on a film set for very little to no pay, right? Like that's a lot to ask of someone. So you want to make sure that they're actually getting the best out of it.
Well, also Sassy didn't even mention, but that friend that she had in DC gave us a COVID briefing before we were even on set. So not only are we learning so much about women's access to birth control or lack thereof access, but we're also learning all about COVID during this briefing. So it was a huge learning experience all around.
Yeah, and just to add to rep my friend Jane, who's not even here, but she like this was before the air thing had been cemented. This was like, you know, people were still wearing gloves and like whatever, and she was just like, nothing really else matters, just get ventilation. That was all. She's like, make sure wherever you go there's ventilation, you're outside as much as possible. Like you can spray down everything, clean everything, but the real thing you have to be concerned about is the air particles. And I was just so grateful that she was able to provide that insight, especially that like soon into the pandemic, you know, like now we're 2 years into it, so we know it better, hopefully.
I shared this story one of the previous evenings, and again, I don't want it to make it about me because I already mentioned how long-winded I can be, but I had the opportunity to talk to Guy Norris. I believe it's been a few years now. He's been around since he was like one of the original stunt directors in Mad Max, and fast forward, he's one of the main second unit directors for all the Lord of the Ring movies and on and on and on. And he shared hopefully there are a few nerds in here, but that opening sequence in Lord of the Rings, the big giant battle scenes in the mountains, and some CGI, but hundreds and hundreds of them were actually military people from New Zealand, and they recruit them. Long and short, you can imagine the logistics of a massive set like that on a major motion picture, anything from wardrobe to catering to C-stands. On the day of the shoot, massive snowstorm. So instead of this vast valley where they could shoot, and they had all the logistics manageable, done. Location is out for obvious reasons. So on the fly that day, because you can't reschedule 100 people doing this, let alone all the collateral subsidiaries, they went to the local mall parking lot, stacked a bunch of those carts that you see on the big giant ships, blue or green screened it, and they shot the whole thing in a mall parking lot. So my point of that is the same skills that happened in the pandemic, as I'm hearing all of you speak, it's still the same mindset or skills. Are just kind of still on the fly, but you have to hustle and be resourceful as more than you've ever had before. But it seems like your venture, Sassy, Lauren, and Vince, was you had like a health education slash film production.
Put it lightly. Well, I was going to ask both Sabrina and Ben, what was your guys like with post during the pandemic? Because you guys shot it right beforehand. So how did that like, I'm sorry, I'm asking you a question. I was just very curious what it was like for you both.
You go ahead, Ben, because this is your day for the thing. Oh, okay.
No, go first, please.
Okay, thank you. For me, I was just at home, and I was just kind of figuring out how. Actually, I was kind of like teaching myself how to edit as I was editing it. Wow. So I just kind of took forever, as long as I wanted, just editing it on Final Cut. So that's basically all there is to it. I just felt like lucky that I could just.
You know what? After what Sabrina just said, please, you all have access. Please watch her film and remember those comments, because it's such a polished film. I think you were nominated for what's the number one thing in filmmaking? It's sound. It doesn't matter how great the actors were, the script. If that's the one thing that will get people walking off the stage or clicking it off is sound. And again, as a first-time filmmaker, you're like a Robert Rodriguez or something in the vein of like that. You pleasantly, surprisingly had an incredible focus on sound. It was very clean.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So it's neat to know you're just doing it at home like the rest of us. Unless you guys are a big studio, you've got the big studio stages. But Ben, you're gonna.
Yeah.
Well, jumping off from sound, so I mentioned my wife was the editor on this project, and I think this is like basically our second kind of beefy short film that we worked on together. So being that we were in the same location, that kind of made things easier. But then we had a great guy, Spencer, at Hobo Audio here in New York City that kind of moonlighted for us and did our mix and sound design. He really went whole hog on it. I mean, he went above and beyond. And I think that the hardest part was not being able to get in a mixing space with him and and then what am I listening on? I don't really have a setup to review that here, but for like the best quality headphones I can find, like, or borrow my wife's headphones or what have you, So I think that made it a challenge. But then just having the time to work with a musical artist in post, really, because like because I wanted it to feel like a rom-com kind of. I wanted it to be a soundtrack film. That meant like having like a whole list of a bunch of different artists to kind of create that, that roundness to it. So like we worked with this group called Level Third. They're a great kind of like rock hip hop group from Boston. And they were so excited about the project. They took this idea and ran with it. And it's kind of a triptych of 3 songs in the film that borderline on scoring elements. And there's sort of the thematic thing that like the song kind of mutates. It's 3 different songs, but there's like a motif that's similar. So just like having the space to kind of go on a path like that on something that I would maybe have a more truncated timeline. And it's like, this is what it's got to be. But it's like, let's explore some things. And just often too, and I don't know, Sassy, Sabrina, maybe you agree on this. I feel like I've learned as a director, it's important to have a really strong vision and to provide a strong sense of leadership. But it's also really important to let people, individual artists, take something and run with it. And sometimes I'll get something back from somebody, whether it's an initial acting choice or a first pass on a piece of music or a scene. And it's like, if that was kind of out of the box from where my expectations were, I've learned now to lean into that and listen to that more closely, because it may be for me that was just a blind spot that I had in the film. It may not be like, oh, this is way off base. I've learned to give it a second chance. And I think that this time in post with A Lone Star Love gave me that opportunity.
In another life, I used to teach film for Boston University. And when it came up to the directing aspect of it, very generically in mainstream, there were 3 kind of profiles. There was the Spielberg, where is do as I say, period. Then there's the urban legend of James Cameron. I want you to fall down the steps like this. And then he would proceed to fall down the steps. And then there's the Ridley Scott. I think it's Ridley opposed to his brother, where Russell Crowe, Denzel, here's a script, scene a year, action. They just so full. And then I'm sure there's everything in between. But the thing is, especially with all the events included, it's always learning on the set. No matter, I hear it from the veteran big blockbuster directors all the time. There's always a learning process. Something has to be new, and that's kind of the joy as an artist, that it's the passion makes you hungry to learn more, because you don't want to redo the same story over and over again, unless you're Michael Bay. No, I'm just kidding. So Vince, do you have anything you'd like to add as far as well, because that's a different dynamic too, though. I'm trying to think of other power couples who have the most intimate relationships on set, and you know what, if it's cool, could we explore that a little bit? Was it a thing? Didn't matter at all? Were you more apt to get everything out on set, or after
It was
when you got
actually-
home, what happened?
Yeah, well, basically,
No big
the funny
deal.
thing was obviously driving to and from set. We were together in the truck and everything. We were the first ones on set, last ones off.
Yeah.
I tell people, like, I'm not a coffee drinker, but when we're shooting, I am. So it's
Okay.
I probably got the least amount of sleep that entire week. But the thing is, it was nice having those drives home where we basically would kind of do a kind of post game. We talk about it on the way back. We'd say, like, what was working, what wasn't. How do we feel about this? Maybe if we had to, things we didn't really have to reshoot much, so we mostly got everything we needed then and there. It was more that I was able to basically help by being the person Sassy could delegate to. So that way she could focus more on getting the performance she needed from getting the shot she needed, and all the other, fluff I was able to handle. I mean, as an actor myself, I know actors, we all have something we need, and sometimes that's validation, and I need it myself. But one thing I found is that it was nice to be able to work and talk and be kind of the face of the production for all the questions, anyone had to go to. I could take care of that. That way Sassy could stay directly on the important stuff. So that way, anything on the outside, anything frills, any problems that came up, usually would run by me first, and then I decide whether or not if it was worthy of Sassy's time.
So you're like the wolf in Pulp Fiction. You took care. You took care of the problems.
Exactly.
And he just came. Vince would send in Vince.
It was always I'll take care of the problems, because the last thing she needs is to worry about something that is superficial.
Vince, if things don't work out, maybe we could get together, because I have a few projects. I could use a fixer. I think we all could use a fixer. That's just nice to hear. That's
It's
nice
just
to
one of those
hear.
things that comes with being, together on set like that. It's just like something that, it was something that we both kind of bring to the production. And I think, like, she can definitely attest to a lot of things that, like, there's a lot that she's better at than I'm not good at. And so by kind of finding where exactly we mesh together, that's how you become a power couple, baby.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking
I think
about.
one thing too, like when I think about Vince and my time together on set, that the one specific event that I valued was, so we did COVID tests we're in LA, and there's a lot of free COVID tests that were available very early on, which was awesome. And the only problem with that, of course, is that you have a 24 to 30, like a 72-hour turnaround on the tests. So you can get them back immediately. You can get them back 3 days later. And so pretty much most of, let's say 80% of the actors were very good with that. Let's say 20% were not so much. And one of the actors hadn't gotten his results back yet. He had one scene to shoot, and he showed up to set, and we don't have his results. And the second AD was a really great gatekeeper. She was amazing. And she's also from Northern Virginia, actually. She came out here. But anyway, so Sophie was great. And she was talking to James, and the actor, and she came to me, and she was like, okay, we haven't gotten his COVID test yet. What do you want to do? And I really had no idea what to do, because exactly, 703, that's her area code still. And I pulled Vince aside, and what was really nice about talking to him is that he had kind of no bias, in the sense that, like, you talk to a producer, you talk to the AD, you talk to an actor, and they all have their own, like, way of how they want to handle it. And so Vince and I talked it out, and it was really nice having that, like, sounding board to go off of. And then we decided, he can't come shoot because we don't have his test, and we don't know. Regardless, the actor went home, and literally as soon as he got home, he got the email results on his phone, drove right back to set, forwarded it to us, and we were able to shoot. But, like, it was those moments that I was really grateful for, to have that person to be able to talk to. And also in post-production, because Vince assistant edited this, and I edited it. And it's like, you can't say that 5 times fast, but it's like, being able, like, his computer's over there, and, like, being able to, like, pass the files back and forth. And also, to throw it back to Ben, you said your wife edited the film, or like that, I'm sure was, like, also awesome, I would imagine.
Rachel was not involved in production on this particular film, but we're often on set together. And I think, you guys must get this a lot, but, like, Rachel and I get this too. Like, how does that work? And I think that, like, filmmaking, television, entertainment industry, show business, whatever you want to call it, is not like any other kind of world. And it is a world filled with passion, and you are trying to create something new, and it is an act of sheer will. And so I'm sure that you guys have a dynamic between you, an energy between you guys, that you don't necessarily allow that energy to flow to other people in the same way, right? Like I can say things, Rachel and I can say things to each other on set, and we are passionate equals on set, you know? But we know that it's not like things get fiery or we disagree or we're arguing. It's just that we can be more frank with each other on set. Now, of course, I address any other number of other people that are doing work for us, and there's a completely different vibe because that respect has not been earned in the same way of years of intimacy and you're building a life together and all that stuff. But I think it's you can have a partner and that expression, Vince, that visual, that is exactly the visual. But it's a very lovely experience. But you know, in Alone Star Love, like I said, I didn't have Rachel on that project, and I was with a lot of new collaborators. I mean, I was fortunate enough to work with Nick, who was the DP that I'd worked with before. But Annette was baked into the project. Dee and Ronan were baked into the project. So in a way, I was sort of stepping into their world, and I just try to be as sensitive and open and warm and loving as possible, but also pushing people to do their best work gently and lovingly, pushing people to their most creative selves. And I think you can do that if you respect people's time, and if you provide as much of an environment as you are capable of for them to do their best work, then you can ask that back from them. And that was a really exciting part of Alone Star Love for me.
You know, there's just something special there because it's a natural dynamic. You see it repeated. You know, I mentioned Rodriguez or Spielberg, but you'll see that they'll consistently have the same DPs. They'll work with the same actors because you've shared the same scars. You know, the wartime moments when you forgot the AA batteries in the middle of the desert, so the whole production stops, or whatever. Because it seems like the whole pandemic, you could just replace that title pandemic or whatever with just whatever thing there's no way you could have pre-produced for. But it's just, again, it's kind of special that you have these relationships with the people there, but also you share that relationship where, again, there may not have to be words. You may, like acting, you don't have to do the whole monologue. You can explain the whole moment with just a quick wink or a nod or an acknowledgement, and a twitch in the face. So that's just, kudos to that situation. That's, that's like a next level. Awesome. Sabrina, are you learning a whole bunch of other stuff from these more seasoned directors?
Yeah, so Sabrina, you have to get married and make a movie with this person. That's the moral of the
Make
story.
sure they can
Just
edit.
kidding.
Well, I actually do have a partner, which is my younger sister. She was the star of my film, and she also was the composer for the music. So wow. So we write together now too. So she's my partner in crime. So we have that like mind meld where we're like, oh yeah, I know. And then like I know what you're saying, and then just through a look. So it's like it's nice to hear other people do that too, especially with like a spouse or a fiance. It's like this is wonderful to hear.
Because again, it's special. I've been, sometimes I sneak on the bigger sets just to see if it, because these are multi-million-dollar budget films, and it's a pleasant, and I poke around. Sometimes I cherry pick some of the actors from my own stuff. This is more in the past, but then at the same time, I'd see the dynamic between the directors and the DPs, and they're having the same arguments. It's great because it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, we got to be here. We got it till 7 a.m. or something. I said this a prior evening. Please forgive any viewers for hearing me repeat that. I hope you guys realize you got something special going on there. And I don't know. Have any of you seen the Desi Arnaz, Lucille Ball films again? I don't know.
I'm still hungry, baby. I think we should order some food.
Oh, okay. How about that?
Think about what you want, or I'll go grab.
Let me take care of that real quick.
She's talking to someone else, I think.
That's power,
I think
right?
that she's talking to someone else.
If this could only happen,
order some all tacos. Like we can make that happen these days.
I'll take a taco.
where is everybody right now? By the way, where is?
Yeah, please. Shout out to. I think everybody has the same screen. Is Annette? You're in the top left corner. Vince, you're on the bottom right. So let's do a quick Brady Bunch. Obviously, I'm in Northern Virginia. So Annette, where are you right now? We'll go across and then down the bottom.
I'm in New York City.
Okay. Ben?
New York City, yes.
Sorry, Annette.
Yeah.
Sassy?
I'm in LA in the middle of a nice big heat wave that's happening right now. It's quite hot.
Sabrina?
I'm in Arlington, Virginia.
Heard of it.
I kind of want to go to the
She's still talking.
I'll tell her in a second.
I'm in rainy New York, but heading back to the heat wave in LA tomorrow. So.
Okay. And Vince, your wife is there. I don't know. Do you want to?
Yes, I'm literally the next room over. She's like right through that door over there. So
We just had another couple last evening. So trends going on. Yeah. And by the way, Sabrina, you're straight up. I believe your film is straight up Northern Virginia because you're indigenous and cast, crew, everything was here. And again, it's a special thing. When I first produced the festival, I didn't think there would be any connection. But it just seems like everybody has a cousin, goddaughter, parent, uncle here. And then, yeah, I mentioned it before. Let's see, I'm going to click. So we'll leave like the last half hour for Q&A. So that has us at about 22 minutes. Sabrina, you're coming tomorrow night, right?
Yes.
But you're more than welcome to talk. It's freewheeling. Do you want to talk a little bit about your film and share with other people?
I'll see if I think somebody has a question, so I'll let her ask the question for the people who are scheduled for today.
Okay, very, very nice. Nadine, besides tacos, what can we help you with this evening?
Hi, thanks everybody. This is actually quite interesting to hear different filmmakers talking as well, and you guys interacting with each other. And I have several questions, but I'm going to narrow it down to the first one that I wrote down, which is why and how do you go about for the other filmmakers picking which film festivals to submit to and how to promote the festivals that you're in, so that friends and family and everybody don't get like overwhelmed with here I am again. So
Anybody wants to jump in?
I'll be happy to jump in on that. This is my third film that has had any kind of festival run. It is really the first run that I managed myself. First project, I had an executive producer that was kind of taking on that. I was directing, so I wasn't really involved with how we were going to promote in festivals or what festivals we were going to select. Second film was a very, very, very niche project that was not even really meant for festivals. It was oriented around getting people to vote in the 2018 midterms to try to change things up. So that was really just, that was not about getting the career down the football field. That was just about something I felt like I had to say at the time. So when it came to this, I was like, okay, we have to have a strategy going on here. So the first thing we did was develop that strategy, and that strategy was built around where do we want a world premiere. And so we finished the film probably, I don't know, late spring, early summer of 21. It was completely done. And then we decided at that time that we wanted to try to make Austin Film Festival our world premiere. So that meant we were kind of backing everything up. Austin happens at the end of the year in October, and that means that's kind of at the end of maybe a cycle of runs. So we had to wait to submit because we did not want to give up that status. And Austin is particular about your premiere status. So, of course, the film was shot in Austin. It's really oriented around the culture of Austin. It's not just where we shot. It's part of what the film is about, A Lone Star Love. So we're like, okay, let's go for that and set that as a goal. And I think setting a goal and not just spraying and praying is really good, because not only does that make you more likely that you can hit your target, but it gives you some measure of success. Because I think it's very difficult to measure success from a festival run, especially if you're talking about yes, exactly. Especially if you're talking about a short. Congratulations, Sabrina, on getting a feature out there. I mean, that is a terrific accomplishment. No matter what happens with the film or where your career goes from here, that is a terrific and huge accomplishment. I'm getting goosebumps just saying that to you because it's a deeply meaningful thing. But if you're talking about a short film, how do you measure your goals and what are they? So for us, we looked at, okay, it was Austin where we're going to try to world premiere. And then we took it from a geographic standpoint. Let's hit every festival in Texas, or try to. Let's hit New York because our team is centric to there, and LA for obvious reasons because we want to create and cross-pollinate. And then after that kind of tier, we were looking at just like, what are good experiences? I still have a 703 number. I was born in Virginia Beach, Virginia, but my family was in the military, and I made my way back from my time in high school. Huge impact on me from an artistic standpoint. So it was like NovaFest, learned about NovaFest, and it's like, okay, this is a great opportunity to just plug back in and give back into that community of people. If there are places, resource is a huge thing. How much money can you spend on festivals? And also, if you cannot have a great virtual platform like NovaFest is providing here, and you have to attend in person, that's a lot of money to go there. So you start to look at it and go, well, I don't know anybody in the middle of Illinois. I don't have a lot of friends in Chicago, but I do have a place to stay in Boston. Okay. And that saves you a couple $100 right there. So just starting to think about that. And then of course, if you can hit early festivals earlier in the submission process, that's going to maybe help you out with fees and allow you to have a longer run. But in terms of using film festivals to promote your film, I think, Nadine, you were saying about like hitting up your same community again and kind of feeling like you're knocking on the door. I think the key is to just, when you're promoting a film at a festival, is to just meet and talk to people and be interested in their work. I mean, if you talk to people whose work inspires you, but get involved in their work and let the joy of that ride you in the festival experience. And that is where you'll go. Because I remember I was talking to Didi, and I'll just wrap it up by saying this. She's like, we're having this premiere in Texas, and she's thinking she's got to sell all these tickets to her local friends and things like that to get people to go. And I said, Didi, there are people that are going to the Austin Film Festival. And our job isn't to get all the people to go see our screening. Our job is to get everyone who's going to be at that festival to not miss this screening. So it's really about, festivals are a great opportunity to share your work with your community, but most importantly, it's about finding your community, I feel like. And with those kind of structure to our strategy, so far, so good for us.
Yeah, if you know what, I can't help myself. I want to hijack the conversation for writing all your coattails there, Ben, because one of the main pillars and undercurrents that we do here at NovaFest is education. Shamelessly, I will promote the Capitol Film Market this weekend, where we bring in, again, kind of refreshing to hear Sassy and Ben and Vince your side of it, because these guys have been around for a while and they're a little salty about the business, in the sense that, going back to what I said about education, the big thing we push is that it is called show business for a reason. Most of the people, and I'll be gracious in saying that 95% of the filmmakers just really don't get it, like really, really get it, because the show is the fun, the sexy, the creative, that's what gets your blood going, the show part of show business. But the business part is cold strategy. It's like any other business. It's a cold bucket of water. And as you were alluding to, Ben, it's a bit of a game. On the higher, multi-million-dollar films, I've seen it before, where there was I'm trying to remember the name. There was a film called "The Kids Are All Right" with the Hulk from the Avengers. The point being, this one producer had a movie. They had that movie. Then there was a Julia Roberts movie coming out right around the same time, and they talked to the two biggest festivals, which were Sundance and Cannes, and both of them are like, well, we want the premiere, and if you don't give us the premiere, we're not going to screen you at our festival. Again, this is that's 1 and 2. So here are the logistics and the marketing of it. Julia Roberts' film, which captures, again, this is where it gets into the cold dynamics, no squishy happy feelings. It's going to capture the 40-year-old women or whatever, all the sales match up. It's going to hit that market. It's almost exactly the same demographic we're hitting. So they had to choose between each festival depending on when Julia's movie was released at the same time. And see, that's just like one sliver of the dynamic, who knows, depending on what your specific film puts out there. Getting into the festivals themselves, even before I started all of this, all those stories you hear, those 1,000 stories you hear about in Sundance are true, as far as paying off the waiters. So that the Fox Searchlight, representative producer goes to the restaurant and goes, so what's the buzz? What's the hot film? You just pay this waiter to, basically share your film, putting resumes or one sheets in the paper towel bin, lollipops, condoms, Sassy, given out, with your screening time on them.
Yeah,
These are all techniques that are used.
We definitely did. And also, I know that Lauren has to pop off for a second, but she also, I would guess, has an answer to this, because in addition to being an actor, she is also a director, writer.
Sure.
Thank you, Sassy. So sweet of you. Well, I have to run a little bit, but I just wanted to thank you all so much for having me. This is such a great festival, and it's so amazing hearing about all of these different films. I'm so excited to go and watch them. But thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you for making
I
it
know
through.
that she has to like leave at a certain time. That's why I was like, okay, Lauren, you gotta go at 5:15. Gotcha. But what I was going to piggyback off what Ben said with the film festival thing is that it's very interesting because I too have had very different experience, right? Based on the film that you have to do. Like I remember the first film I did so many moons ago. I was so annoyed because I was so broke at the time and could not afford to do any festivals. And you put all your money in the few entries you can afford, and then you don't get in because you don't have a name actor or whatever.
Right.
And so for a while I had kind of like sworn them off, but then you start making money and then you can submit and all that stuff, and that's great. And it's very interesting because I have a couple other filmmaking friends who are in different sort of degrees than I am and dealing with festivals a couple different ways. And Fernando, I think as you said, like it's true, it's a business, right? It's a show business, and that can be very frustrating if you're an artist. But I think that like any industry, like you have to think of it as a way to make money, right? Like agents, managers, studios, they want to hire you to make a profit. They're not hiring you because they feel like it, because it would be fun. As much as fun that would be for all of us, right? But like you have to kind of look at where you want to go and how you want to do it, and also be realistic. Like I have friends who have done ultra low budget stuff and the films are good but not like breathtaking, and they're like, I'm so mad I didn't get into Sundance. And I'm like, like really?
I've
Right?
nipped into the bit. You don't have. I rarely put a negative spin on anything. But just pure logistics in business. I mean, the dirty secret is they get like 15,000 something crazy amount of submissions, and it's already pre-programmed. I think they have like maybe 15 films that weren't already pre-programmed that actually get in out of the 15, 20,000. I'm not poo-pooing. That's their business model.
No,
and it
for
works.
sure.
But
And they need to attract people. That's the whole thing, right?
Mhm.
Like people go to South by Southwest, they go to Sundance, they go to Tribeca or whatever, and that's
Correct.
their deal, which is totally fine. And I think there are so many great festivals like Nova and other festivals in the middle, like the middle tier and higher, that are like, let's bring in good quality filmmakers, let's bring in good quality films and give a chance to people who don't have Natalie Portman starring in their film. Because like, let's be real, we can't all get Natalie Portman as much as we might want to, so like I think with film festivals is about being realistic, and also about kind of like shooting for your dream again in a realistic way. And it's also about packaging, right? Because like it was funny when we finished this was one of Vince's first producing ventures. We finished shooting and Vince said to me, he's like, oh, it's done, what do we like, we're gonna have so much time now. And I was like, oh, like
No.
right, like I was like, buckle
I
up, buddy. Like, we got at least 3 more years on this thing, so right, like you have to like do the press packaging and the poster and the this and the that and everything in between. And so it's like, if you don't go into it with that mindset, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. Because like in a sense, like any good artist can make a painting, make a song, do a whatever, but you have to, no one's going to watch it because it's good. Like, let's be real. They have to have a reason to watch it. And that comes with marketing, and that comes with business. Maybe a few people watch it because it's good, but you really just have to know how to work the audience. Because if you think about it from the alternate perspective, if someone says to you, I have a really good film, you're going to be like, okay, so does everyone else. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what makes your film so special? And then they show you the log line, they show you the this and the that, and you're like, oh, okay, now I want to check out this film. Like, I'm going to check out both of your guys' films, So it's like, that's the kind of way you have to look at it, is not just as an artist, but also in terms of marketing and business, and how can you monetize what you're doing in a way that also doesn't sell your soul.
If I may emphasize that, Sassy, it's again part of what I don't mean to be on a soapbox or, this is a voice of God or anything, but it's just I like to provide nuggets of information, and hopefully it promotes to everyone's success. That's where my heart is. And from day one, before, because that's the cool thing is I've been in your spot too as a filmmaker. It's been a bunch of years now, but shared with me from Dov Simmons. To many, he's a dinosaur, but the godfather of distribution. He'll tell you up front, and I get a lot of poop from some of my colleague friends, is that and this is the big title. Please ingrain this. We are not in, and this will be a little bit heartbreaking. I'll set it up a little bit. We are not in the filmmaking business. We are in the marketing business. with a pretty solid period. I mean, obviously, what we just said, show that you did the creative moment, you captured, the actor explored a certain thing that I never thought when I, had it on the page, and you see your work on the big screen, like, because you're exposing it. There's so many experiences happening on different levels. But at the end of the day, and this is where I get a lot of poop with this little comment, you made the tuna, but now it's time for Charlie. No matter how fantastic this Brad Pitt, Natalie Portman film is, that's going to change social justice, recreated pioneering spirit of filmmaking, Brad Pitt and Natalie Portman's floating face, because I used to design posters, and all posters are floating heads. Blow your mind there. All they are the Brad Pitt, Natalie Portman, floating head is going to be right next to a can of tuna at your local grocery store. That's the the cold water. It's just Sassy, you mentioned you got this great movie. What is the usual question right after someone you introduce? Oh, I saw a great movie.
Who's in it?
Yeah,
that's the next question.
Yep. That's
now what
usually
what is it about? Who's in it?
Correct. That's why we have the Tom Hanks, the Tom Cruise, because Tom Hanks, he has a brand. You have an idea of the level of quality. May or may not hit the genre, but the level of quality of the film. So at the end of the day, the marketing side of it is you just have to understand what they're thinking. Just like an actor or a director, you want to attract them to, maybe they're all about money, or it's a project that it's their genre, or maybe they want to, it's like Steve Carell, he wants to jump out of, he doesn't want to be that goofy, fun loving guy. He wants to do like a serious dark role. So maybe that attracts him. He'll take a pay cut. On the business side, you got to know that they're going after buyers. We have Berlin buyers. We have people in Ghana. We have people in Shanghai that, this is, they don't want black actors, just because it's not racist, but they can't identify with them. That's why that's why the genre movies, the horror movies and the action movies resonate, are easier sells, again, for the buyers and distributors. Boy and girl fall in love, bad guy takes away girl, boy goes after, for those kind of films and horror movies, there's not a lot of language involved. It'd be the same thing. I remember going into 7-Eleven, I saw a big stack of films or DVDs at the time, and they're all African. I'm like, where did this come? And they're all from Nigeria. It wouldn't be popular on Netflix or mainstream. It's not racist or anything like that, but we don't identify. They were like political thrillers. There's just no connection between us and them. So just understanding the game. But again, I always end this kind of story with it's Hollyweird, where, and don't get me wrong, current events aside, at one point the rule was like black actors, that they don't resonate. The further east you go, the less popular they are. But the number one actor on the generic world stage was why is this Cuba Gooding Jr. of all people, and Will Smith at the time. Sorry, these are just blockbuster. It didn't matter what region, but it breaks that whole rule that I just mentioned. So that's just kind of the wacky world we're in, and mischievously, it makes it kind of fun to try to figure out and show them why they're wrong.
Just two analogies that I've always
please
with as a filmmaker and everything was one I actually learned way back when I was just a cater waiter here in LA, and I was working actually on the Fox studio a lot. And one of the events I was working, they did a thing where basically they talked about how in a lot of new things, they said, think of people's attention like a currency. It's finite. They have only a certain amount they could spend per day. Why should they spend it on yours? And It's kind of like you think about like that currency. And another analogy that I always thought of too when seeing like art, the business side of art and everything was, he said, think of everything like a jelly donut. The jelly's the fun, the art, the really things that get you thinking, the things that make you really go. But the donut is what keeps it all together. But obviously too much donut, it's pretty bland because the donut is the structure, it's the marketing, it's the business end, it's the putting it where it needs to be seen. Because if you just had a splat of jelly on the ground, no one's going to eat that. You wrap it in a donut, put it on the shelf, make sure it's nice in there. But obviously, if it's too bland, it's not enjoyable. But too much jelly, it's too messy. And take that out as you will. But
and then you have Natalie Portman on a commercial saying, "Hey, this is the best jelly."
Exactly, Vince. It's like what it comes down to is understanding your audience, right? Because it's not about there's a continuum of I'm making art and I'm making a commercial product, and you're either on one end of that spectrum or not. But it's like if you're making a film or a series or what have you, and your audience is one, you're not really making art because you're not really connecting with other people. You're not really doing the human experience. So I think that, like, you know, it's okay. Like, we can talk about, like, marketing is so important, or names, or do you have the alchemy in the DNA of your film that makes it a potential commercial proposition? But we are living in a world where you can find your audience now.
Yep.
Because you can touch everybody in the world, and there is a niche, and niche is almost better. You just need to find your slice of 100,000 people that think this idea is the way to be, and they can be all over the world. And so if you're not starting your development process, because it's development, pre-production, production, post-production, marketing, distribution. And if you're not thinking about those two sides of the thing, and if you're not thinking about the people that are going to be watching your film, and people can get in this very myopic film school point of view that they're making their vision and all that stuff. But what does it do? And what does it say to you? And it limits you as an artist if you're not thinking about who your audience is, not just the message you're trying to say, but who is your audience? Who is this group of people that you can all sit down as a creator and the people receiving and go, yeah, I agree. And I think if you hunt for your audience in a practical sense in marketing, and also from a vision sense, that's how you will create a successful project in my mind. And I'm still trying to figure out what that means, but that's the path that I'm believing in anyway.
Here's the thing, Ben, and hopefully, again, a few of my words can help out. It's because this is such a cool business in that sense. It's painful and it hurts. And Sabrina, just enjoy this time where you're not all marred up, but the passion will keep you going through it. There's the dichotomy is there's two mentalities. One, I'm not a know-it-all. I don't know everything, but I pick stuff from other people who are successful, and maybe it'll help you if I share it. The one big thing is you have to have the mentality of you're going up against the Avengers. That's who you're going up against. And so that just makes everything
so true. Oh my God.
Literally,
Sorry,
you're like, oh, well, my film has this. I don't have a. You can say all these things, but at the end of the day, as Ben, you said, people have limited time, attention spans, dollars. That is literally who you're competing against. Spider-Man. You really are. At the same time, riding your coattail, Ben, there was a documentary. I think it was submitted to one of our festivals, or at least I saw it somewhere along the journey, where these filmmakers did a documentary already. It's a hard sell unless you get names. Morgan Freeman narrates it. Maybe you got now a shot. Or President Biden or Trump, or they're interviewed because it's whatever. Now you have some, whether you like or hate them. Now you've got some traction, name recognition in a documentary. But these people, these producers, they covered, their documentary was on there's an event or events where they have the elderly who compete. It's like the elderly Olympics. They have another name for it, but along those lines, we've seen them maybe on threads here and there. But it's people. Elderly people who are running and jumping and swimming and all, so the documentary was focused on them, which contradicts what I said about the Avengers, because what they did then, they went after they marketed to all the assisted living centers around the country, if not the world, and thinking out of the box, because we are the ultimate entrepreneurs as filmmakers. They did gangbusters on that, by the way. Again, selling to and they did their screenings and premieres around assisted living in elderly communities. Then they were so successful, they actually created where they made more money, an instructional video on how they were successful as filmmakers. And they sold So, totally thinking outside of the box.
Well, I'll go one step farther than
that.
Please. We're not just competing with Avengers, billion plus movie, we're also competing with a 25-second TikTok video that will get a huge amount of views, and it's just face and an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really have to respect your audience when you're making a narrative project, when you're making any kind of more traditional form of media. You have to pack as much, and I'm not talking about the whole kitchen sink, but you have to respect your audience. You have to make your story dense with meaning. You have to give them every beat has to be something they want to bite onto. You don't want to give them, you were mentioning Lord of the Rings earlier. It's not too little butter spread over so much bread. You really got to respect the entertainment value there, because, I made an interesting 25-minute film that maybe is good. Maybe people laugh, maybe people enjoy it. But how many people watch this 30-second YouTube video? this 30-second TikTok video. And I'm not speaking of that in the pejorative, but it just goes to show how much you have to respect how savvy your audience is and how valuable those eyeballs are, Vince.
Also, to add on to that, like with one thing with How to Hack Birth Control is I do a lot of social media commercials for like bigger companies. And like, I'm assuming none of them are going to watch this. So it's kind of like selling your soul a little bit, right? Like you have like an outlet, right? No, 100%. So like, I basically took all the techniques that I do in those commercials and put them in How to Hack Birth Control. That's normally not the way that I make movies, but I recognized, I thought, you know, how can I get into the market, right? So I adapted the things that I know into a filmmaking perspective and made it marketable. And that goes to what our overarching thing, right? Is that I've gotten feedback from people about the film, but I find that people either love it or they hate it. And I think that comes to the content specifically, kind of, but it's also like, it's very modern. And so I've always felt that as a filmmaker, you always kind of have to embrace what's happening. Like when I went to film school in 2004 to 2008, digital was just happening. And I had a cinematography teacher be like, digital is the worst thing that's happened to filmmaking. Yeah, exactly, Ben. That was my reaction to it too. And then my first thought was like, I can make a feature film now because I can afford to make a movie, right? Yep. And I think that there's this like kind of shift happening right now in the film industry that I find is very interesting. And I feel like everyone here kind of knows how it's going to play out and the modern stuff is going to take over. But it's like, that's not to disrespect the past, because the past has brought us to where we are. And that's not to take away from great films that are happening right now that do the traditional style of filmmaking, but there's also a credence that needs to be respected to the new styles that are happening. And I also think about in terms of like who your actors are in terms of race, gender, or ethnicity, that I used to come from the perspective as a female filmmaker that I need to make more masculine films because that would market more people. And this was like 10 years ago. Plus, you know, because I would get conversations with executives be like, well, no one's going to watch that because it's about a woman. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I'm also, yeah, right. That's my face about it too. But like, you know, I'm in my younger 20s or whatever. And then you have this moment where you're like, well, I'm just going to make a film that people are going to want to watch. And it just happens to be about a woman. And I think that as filmmakers now, especially today, we can make a film with whatever gender, ethnicity, religion, you know what I mean? And just the time for that is over. The time to play along with these old rules, it's done. And it's really our prerogative to take these marketable films and make them about people that we want to talk about and show the world that you can make a good movie and it, you know, can be about like indigenous people in South America. It can be about all women. It can be about all men. It doesn't matter like who the stories that we tell. We shouldn't have to be thinking about that stuff anymore because you can make a good movie no matter who it stars. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of the way I feel about the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I will say those that it's more of, and this is not again in pejorative. That's more of a maybe romantic view of it, and I think I'm all for it. At the same time, there is the business aspect of it because you know what I'd mentioned before. It's this dichotomy within this cool, weird, wild business where, as you mentioned, we're in an age and have been for a little while where technology has made film production more accessible, which means, you know, people who maybe had latent filmmaking skills and abilities now have greater opportunities, but so do people who do not. And so a lot of not so great stuff. Let me see. Okay, sure, Ben.
I also think that like when I also went to film school and was getting started, there weren't any other women there, quite literally. Like Catherine Bigelow hadn't won for The Hurt Locker yet. There weren't any other people that I could talk to. And even when I would go to industry events, the first question I'd always get asked is, "Oh, so you're an actor?" Like they assumed that was the only reason I would be there as a woman, not acting, because acting is a profound profession that requires a lot of skill and a lot of talent to do. But like that wasn't why I was there. And I think that while there is a marketability aspect, that it comes to a point where you have to prove the point, right? Like you have to make the movie to show that like
yes,
what used to happen, like the whole like if it was about a woman, she was like clumsy and couldn't find a man because she was busy working on her career. And then in the end, she found out that like in the best scenario, you know, like that stuff, it's over. And I think that there's, like you're saying, there's so many more venues that we can make films at. There's so many people that now can make films. And I think that like I'm finding in the industry that there are people who are very against it. And then there are actually people who are very open to it. And you just have to find the right people. And I think that if enough of us keep going and keep fighting the good fight, that like in the end, kind of good always wins. Maybe that's just the optimist in me, or just like wanting to get bigger in the industry and hoping it works out, you know, but like as long as we keep going, then I think that kind of nothing can stop this new generation of filmmakers as we put our footing down on the ground.
Sassy, that's exactly the word I was going to use, generation. I feel like we're talking about a revolution in the entertainment industry that is being driven by millennials, a different point of view. And I'm not trying to say anything about anybody older or anything younger, but there is a toughness that this generation has gone through. That digital transition, the democratization of filmmaking, I think that it's going to lead to more beautiful films, more diverse films. I don't just mean that because people have different looks in them, but films that we could not even imagine. Because it's not, we're not just, as you said, we're not making old films anymore. It's not just about making films that were made in the 1970s, but in 2025. You know what I mean? We need to make our new films with our ethos that we have, that will be very hard won for this generation of filmmakers. Because as much opportunity as there is, and much democratization, and many platforms that there are to get your work out there, it is still a very, very difficult business that puts a lot of roadblocks in your way, very gatekeeper oriented. A lot of people at the top, a lot of older people that want to control things. People don't want to let go of power easily. And we may be old folks by the time that the game is completely changed, but I really believe that this generation of filmmakers, the people all in this room right now, are going to be part of a wave that frees, what do you want to call it, cinema, entertainment, videos that are this big, or triangle videos. When I'm 85, we'll be watching videos through triangles. I don't know the aspect ratio, but I really believe that we'll push things forward if we stay strong.
Also, to go off that, I think a film that kind of proves the point is The Worst Person in the World. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but when I saw it in theaters, I remember thinking like, this could not. I'm seeing it in Burbank on IMAX theater. Like when it's a foreign film about a female protagonist who doesn't know what she's doing in her life. And in the end, she still kind of doesn't know what she's doing in her life, you know, like no spoilers, but there you go.
Where's the arc?
Right. And then it's like, you think about like 5 years ago, would that film have happened? Probably not. 5 years before that, probably not. But the fact that this got major distribution across the globe, and like that to me shows that there is hope for the stories that we want to tell in terms of filmmaking, acting, writing, whatever. The fact that that film can get distribution like that is just such a huge like milestone, I feel like.
Yeah, actually, you think of just one last thing that made me think of was like when people talk about like, you know, what kind of movies we make nowadays. My favorite thing I heard someone say one time, they said like, oh, you couldn't make Blazing Saddles today. And I'd say, well, of course, because if you gave someone that script, they'd read it and go, wait a second, this is Blazing Saddles. This is already a movie.
Again, we're in such a dynamic situation right now, Ben. You're alluding to it. It's a combination of there are still fundamentals, story. Way back to the very beginning, cave paintings. What's going to captivate the human experience? What does everybody universally share? Killing the elk, whatever, or you know, a relationship. No matter what the myriad of aspects, it comes down to the story. And Sabrina, it's a very tough. These guys know it. These people know it. And it will always be a very tough business. It is very, 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 very hard. You see the people crying at the Oscars, the Academy Awards, like, what's the big deal? It's because you're not supposed to be there. It was so impossible for us to show up in general, to be there, like to reach that pinnacle. And this is that's just my personal opinion, but the silver lining in all of it is, and hopefully you pick up with everybody that's been speaking this evening, including yourself, is that the silver lining is hustle. One mainstay, I'll give you two hardcore things that still remain. And I wrote notes on this so I can try to remember. Number one, no matter what you put out there is an audience for your film. It could, everybody's got their own opinion and their licks and flavors, and maybe atrocious horror, naked women and blood everywhere, those kind of stereotypes, to an intimate love story, something about a horse. So there is an audience somewhere. So technology is opening up avenues for them to get access to it. Then the next steps are monetizing it, the commercial side of it. So while, yes, Ben, you have to have your finger to the wind, and it's TikTok and triangular aspect ratios or whatever comes, you have to respect that. But at the same time, there are still some fundamentals, like I mentioned, where, again, just to give a little pinhole of light, and sometimes this can be a really hard, dark business, is there is an audience, but you've really got to roll your shoulders up, roll your sleeves up to find them. Maybe it's easier, maybe it's not. But on many, like so many other fields, it is about empathy. Okay, understanding not only what your audience wants, but understanding what the business people want. Again, they some of them are filmmakers, not all of them, but some sales agents and distributors, they just know that, again, their buyer in Berlin, they need an action film, they need a drama, they need, that they're going to make money off of that. Understand their language. That's so what we do is a craft. It's art, but it's also a craft. And it's just kind of fun jumping sides of your brain from the artistic aspect to, okay, do we submit to Nova? Oh, well, they're in April, or, all kinds of different things. Oh, well, it's, as you said, which is smart. Is it in Northern Virginia or is it in New York? That's where our crowd is. We need people to show up. Surprisingly, historically for us, our biggest nights are Monday and Tuesdays, only because we program it. We try to be nice, where people coming in from out of town domestically, let alone internationally, they want to go to the award ceremony. I pack them towards the end of the festival, so they're lodging, airplane tickets, everything that's taken care of on the back end. But no, we make Nova night, local films. Sabrina, we have you on a Monday or Tuesday night, so you can bring more people and have them show up and fill up the space. So there are strategies across the board. And the big one too at film festivals. This is for what we're trying to get there, but the big boys, the big giant boys. What's worth more than gold at a film festival is buzz. If you can create buzz, that literally is the difference between mediocrity and millions in a heartbeat. If you can create a buzz where, again, Sony Classic Pictures and they find out that Fox Searchlight just bought up, or they're interested in that movie, they may not even seen a frame of that film, but now if they're interested, they kind of did the hard work. If they're willing to put some money in, now and understanding the strategy. Once you get the buzz, which is very difficult, but almost more important, now you create a bidding war. That's your ideal. That's where you want to be. If you can create a bidding war, you're there. And there are all kinds of little cheesy things. You can have George Clooney meet them, at the end of the red carpet in a limousine. Let's go out for drinks later. Human beings. There's the human equation. They just want to hang out with George Clooney, and again, maybe that's what tips the scale, that they sign on to your film. Then it's just in every contract and negotiation is different. So fun times. Fun times. We're running. We've diminished Lydell. You don't have to, but if you're interested, you can bring yourself up to the mic, one of the three squares, if you have any questions. We are coming down to our last 15 minutes. So I do want to give you time to share anything that may or may not have been discussed, and also promote what you're, what's coming up, what you're doing now. You're working on another production where your film is going to be shown again, or you finished your run, or you just began your run. Just share as much as you can, or put stuff that, again, we're going to share this file with you later. If you want to cut out a little piece of the file for your promotional collateral. This is the business side, but still fun. Unless Lydell, did you have a question?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the question you just mentioned, if they could just go back and
please
about their next projects or what they're working on now. I was going to ask a question of Annette. What was going to be her next role, or what she was interested in? I just saw the A Lone Star. Yeah, what is it? A Lone Star Love. I watched it. I'm going to say, Ben. I'm going to say I really thought that was going to end a different way. That he was going to actually go back to the he was going to realize that he did not want the AI, and so that but it was a shocker. But I enjoyed it very much. Thank you. But yeah, if you guys could,
thank you for watching.
Yeah, you're welcome. If you guys could just share with your next project, that's all.
I mean, for me, I'm still in school, so for me, I'm just trying to focus on finishing school, which is in 5 weeks, which I'm very excited for.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And other than that, it's just, being a part of seeing the city opening up again, auditions opening up again. I have my own little projects in mind that I finally, when school is finished, that I'll be able to work on them. So I'm very, very excited to start those projects. So yeah.
I may ask where you're going to school? Is it film related, or you're studying
Yeah.
geobiometry? Something.
I go to the new school here in the city. So my major will be theater.
Fantastic. Great job, by the way. I just throw my opinion. I don't want to. I try to be neutral, but yeah, great job.
Thank you.
When you went from like, there's that moment you were doing the voicemail or whatever, so you're just Monotone Android. Then I was like, they're like, oh, and you got add a little frill to it. It's like, oh, that's cute. That's good. Caught me off guard. Well done.
Thank you.
But as far as next projects, please, everybody. Or you're exhausted, you're jaded, you want no more, you don't want any part of this anymore.
I'm in the middle of writing the How to Hack series. So my managers and I were going to be pitching 3 shows around this fall, winter, and one of them is How to Hack.
Okay.
I'd be lying if I said that when I made How to Hack Birth Control, I envisioned it to be a series. I made it. It was just, it was a great idea. And then people seem to really respond to it. So we've got like how to hack climate change, how to hack voting rights, those types of things.
Wow.
So,
That's
really, to try. I'm in the middle of writing how to hack socialism versus capitalism, because I feel like there's a lot of confusion about that right now. And, just things like that I really want to bring out there. And so right now I'm just in the middle of doing all the PR for birth control and writing like crazy.
I feel like, I don't mean to, but I feel like wagging my finger now. So another unsolicited piece of advice I put out there is, before you hit that first key or have that first thought about your script, is do you have some kind of distribution arm, sales agent in mind to give a call? Like do you have a vision as far as what the business next step is?
I
like,
mean,
who are you going to pitch to?
Assuming that my managers do their job, again, I don't think any of them will be watching this. But I mean, we're going to be going to networks, right? And like pitching it, and the How to Hack Birth Control, the laurels, the awards, all the accolades that it will hopefully continue to get based on the awesome cast and crew's work and all of that stuff will help elevate it to get into actual pitch meetings. And then I have 2 other shows that I'm developing that are totally different, both in their own, diametric off, like corners of whatever. And so like basically you get into Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, whatever, and you're like, don't like this, you got that. Don't like this, you got that. So that's basically what I'm in the middle of right now, is the whole marketing echelon is basically what my life is currently, to get into the room for those meetings. And so it's kind of a lot of Hollywood talk right now, which is fun and exhausting. I prefer to be on set.
Don't we all?
Yeah, right.
I mean, again, I'll just share, it may be relevant still. It's maybe at least 8 months old, but again, just sharing knowledge, anything from making sure your IDMB is the youngest possible. That literally can cost a deal. If you finished it in 2021, for example, IMDb that sucker as 2022. Because literally, again, because I hear from the other side, buyers will look at it and go, "Oh, well, it's already 2020. Your shelf life is about 2 years, basically."
Yeah, it's interesting the IMDb thing you're talking about, because I didn't realize just how much that mattered until about like a year and a half ago, when I started getting into this side of things. Because we look at it as outsiders, like, oh, that's just another thing, but the whole rating, where you are, who you're connected to, all that stuff. And also I think IMDb Pro offers a lot for people in terms of networking. Like I've reached out to people through there that are available, and I think that it's actually a great asset if you use it correctly.
And again, Sabrina, we are in a business to be found. Okay, I always I'm spotlighting because you're like really fresh, Brandon. We're in a business to be found. That means if you see this horrible movie that got distribution that's in your genre, in your world, write down the producers of that film, contact them. If they can produce that amount of crap that four-walled somewhere, guess what they can do with your awesome production and your screenplay. Okay, so again, a whole bunch of unsolicited aspects of it. Also, Sassy, another little, and Vince, Ben, the trend has been, we'll see how things keep shifting again, where Netflix, it depends on your strategy again. Netflix has tended to be, for the lower end of production cycle, has been a loss leader, essentially. Because, you know, I'll just throw out numbers. It costs you $100,000, $200,000 to produce your film, $2 million. And Netflix, because you don't have Natalie Portman, they offer you 25 grand. But you're on Netflix. You can tell all your friends and family, look how awesome I am. And they'll say, wow, you are of substance. Yes. But then you've got to go to your next film and approach your next round of investors. And they go, oh, okay. Oh, you're on Netflix. They could care less. What was the ROI on your past producers? That's all that resonates with them. So the current trend, and again, this could be 8 months old. I don't think it's shifted a whole lot. Is don't take the Netflix deal. Right now, the trend is, because we're doing it too. There are so many streaming service platforms out there. Again, a myriad of them. Everybody's doing it. Exactly. So it's better to have 20 or your film on a platform on 20, 100, 20, 50, 100 different platforms, where, because I still get residuals from like a movie I did 12 years ago. It's like, $50, $100 here or there, but you multiply and you say, what's the big deal? Come on, I spent like 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand. What's $20, $50? But now multiply that by 10, by 20, by 100 every month. Now there's some traction. So again, keeping your finger to the wind. What's trending, what's fundamental, and again, it's for some people that's the thrill. There's the dynamic nature of it. So anyway, unsolicited, throwing it out there, maybe affects your and the other point, because so many fun things. As to your point, Sassy, where in the 90s it was all rom-coms, right? It was who am I thinking of? The blonde. She
Cameron
started.
Diaz.
No. She started in Top Gun, and then she was like in every romantic comedy after. And maybe it says something, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but she was with Tom Hanks and
Meg Ryan.
Thank you. And Billy Crystal. She was like in the early mid 90s, whatever, when rom-coms were hot. So you have to make a decision as an artist. Am I gonna produce a film, write a film that is trending right now, or do I write something that's from my heart and my passion, my gut? One is commercially successful, but then you hear all these stories from AFM, literally like the Kevin Smith and Robert Rodriguez days. Literally at AFM, people were bringing suitcases of money. That's dried up. That doesn't happen anymore. But then in the early 2000s, there was mid 2000s, there was kind of another surge. It's cyclical, but the point being is, you write this rom-com because that's what's selling. Then guess what? A year later, when it's in the can and ready to go out there, it's no longer the hot button genre. So again, it's fun. So with that, Ben, did you? I'm flaking here. Did you have time to say what's coming up?
I do. So Lone Star Love is maybe coming to the end of its first half of the festival run. We'll probably wrap up mid 23, which is fitting because that's when our film is set.
Wow.
I was like,
that's beautiful.
Okay, this is the moment. We'll probably still be doing the festival thing in 2023. Let's just set it there and call that near future enough. But I'm very excited that I just finished post-production on an independent pilot. It's my first stab at a series, 22 and a half minutes. I went way deep on this one. Yeah, I wrote it, directed it, and I'm the lead in it. And
so you're insane, basically.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's it's a sci-fi action time travel cyberpunk mystery.
Oh,
so not ambitious at all, right?
No, not ambitious at all. But it is deeply rooted in small human relationships. It's about vulnerability and trust. It's about loss and grief. So I was working on it before the pandemic, throughout the pandemic. We shot a bit in 19, a bit in 20, and finally wrapped out our last sequences in April of 21. So all those feelings were maturating in me. It's called Zero Method. I'm extremely proud and very excited for it. You can learn more about it at Zero Method TV on Instagram. And if you want to hear more about Lone Star Love and where we're going to have other screenings, alonestarlove.com. But who knows where that will take me. And while I'm currently in developing, the key art and the promotional materials, and we're just setting our strategy in place to get it out into the world, we'll likely have a release of it online this summer, in addition to our television festivals. But while that's happening, I'm trying to go back inside myself and go develop what will become. I have no idea what it's about or what kind of film it's going to be, but I'm determined that my next project is going to be a feature that I will write, that I will make happen and get out in the world. So I'm going to go deep in myself, try to find my truest self, and tell the most beautiful and accurate story to my perspective, the story that I feel that I can tell as beautifully as possible. So Zero Method, check it out online, and we'll see what happens with that.
You sound like an artist, Ben.
Well, I don't know if they make a lot of money, but I'd rather die an artist,
Hence starving artist.
Maybe a combo.
You don't have to be, though.
No,
you can be very wealthy.
Well,
very
I've got circles under my eyes from being, producing a
You're talking to the
commercial
wrong
all
crowd
week
on
long.
that
So I get the business world, but sometimes you just have to take a stab at it. You only live once, right?
Okay. Again, Sabrina, I'm just gonna hammer you because it's fun. But like with here's the thing with what Ben just said. The rules of thumb are one of the rules of thumb in creating film. Besides, no, which you broke. No children and no animals. Just as a director, that's going to drive you nuts. But here's the big thing: you're not supposed to cross genres. Okay, and you just put out a whole bunch out there, but it's like you're starting to tiptoe in a no-no space. But then Ghostbusters breaks every freaking rule. It's a horror movie. It's a comedy. It's an action. You're not supposed to mix genres, but again, that's if you can tell a good story, it's that's you're inspiring me, Ben, because like my nerd side of things, I'm in that world. I worked for Marvel and Avengers and all that stuff before. Is if you get caught, you get caught up too much into the superpowers and the actions. It's about ordinary people in extraordinary situations, and I still think, in my opinion, that's still universal in all of your stories. It's just regular people, but all of a sudden. You're in a musical about birth. I don't know, but it's just an abstract world. But where's the humanity in it? I think that'll hook people every time.
I'll send you a link to the screener. Maybe it's up.
Please do. I'll be honest though, just so you know. Again, in so many cases, we do our best, and again, I'm not complaining at the very least, but it's funny how things mirror. We try to get an audience, but it ends up being filmmakers talking to filmmakers. The ideal is you want to have, writing my own coattail there is you want to get honest perspective from just someone who has no connection per se. They just go in and they're like, oh, okay. They just mainstream Joe or Jane and go, okay, oh, that was funny. That wasn't so great. Oh, I love that twist. Or that ending. That's not where I thought it was going to go, Ben. So thank you all for giving of your time. I know it's for East Coasters, it's a little bit late. For West Coasters, you're probably going to go out to dinner later. But overall, thank you for your time. Thank you for considering Nova Fest. We do have a certain brand we're going for as far as excellence, and you all exemplify that. So thank you across the board, acting, directing, producing. Thank you so much for your time.